Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another collection video. It's been a while since I last filmed a video like this, just because I haven't uploaded any yet, and for a while I was considering, well, I wasn't sure if I was actually going to go ahead with this project, so I have a few videos made. But as it happens, there's the coronavirus epidemic at the moment, so as everyone knows, we're all in quarantine, staying at home, so I thought this will give me something to do, so might as well continue. This is my second retro reviews video. So I'm just going through the alphabet as mentioned. So that's where we are today. I've got 7 releases to talk about. They're all relatively well known, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, hopefully, but let's see how it goes. Firstly, this is the first video I've made with music in the background. What we're listening to, this band here, this is Kiss with Dress to Kill. This album came out in 1975, so it's celebrating its 45th anniversary around about today. Legendary album. This was the last studio album they released before they really broke big. Alive 1, which was their first live album, that's what broke them through essentially into the mainstream. But a lot of great songs on this album, famous hits such as, of course, Rock and Roll All Night. That's the most famous one. Also, Come On and Love Me. But to me, like, there's no real bad tracks on this. So many classic songs. Room Service, Ladies in Waiting, Rock Bottom, great song. She, Love Her All I Can. Damn, the whole album's great. So if for whatever reason you haven't heard this album, definitely check it out. Kiss, Dress to Kill. Alright, so speaking of the 70s and 45th anniversaries, the first CD I'm going to talk about is also celebrating its 45th anniversary. That's Alice Cooper with Welcome to My Nightmare. Of course, Alice Cooper needs no introduction. The godfather of shock rock, who influenced numerous genres, including heavy metal, death metal, black metal, in one way or another, musically or aesthetically. This was Alice Cooper's first solo album after he broke away from the band. It's interesting because Alice Cooper, it's considered sort of hard rock, sometimes heavy metal with the later stuff. This album's quite diverse, quite boring in a sleeve there. It's quite diverse because it's largely hard rock, but it has other influences. Some of my favorite songs on this are Devil's Food. That includes a cameo from the actor Vincent Price. He's got this very sepulchral kind of voice, and talking about the Black Widow. Is that in Devil's Food? I believe so, yeah. And then the next song going into that is Black Widow. But both two great hard rock songs there. Also, Department of Youth, that was the famous single from this. That's a good sort of sing-along 70s anthemic kind of track. Escape, that's probably my favorite song. So Escape, that's a typical feel-good hard rock 70s song. Great stuff. So it's got a very 70s flavor. I really like that. This album is also famous for Only Women Bleed, the ballad, which is a good song, good sing-along song. Also, Cold Ethel. Yeah, it's quite eclectic. So most people think Alice Cooper is all hard rock, heavy metal, but this has some jazz influences, some big brass band, even disco in the title track, so it's interesting. The only songs I don't like so much are 8, 9, and 10. So Years Ago, Stephen and the Awakening. They're kind of eerie, atmospheric tracks, because this album is a concept album about the nightmares of a boy called Stephen. Years Ago, that's a good sort of haunting, eerie track, but Stephen itself, I find that song really grating and I just can't stand it. But maybe I think that's the idea behind the atmosphere on that song, so each their own. But I just find those 8, 9, and 10, the album starts to wander a bit. But definitely favorite tracks: Devil's Food, The Black Widow, Cold Ethel, and at number 1, Escape. Brilliant song. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Alice Cooper with Welcome to My Nightmare. Next album, another Alice Cooper album, Constrictor. This came out in 1987 after Alice Cooper made a comeback. I only discovered this album a few years ago, and shame on me because it's fucking brilliant. I love this album. Like, so underrated. I think it's sort of propelled him back into superstardom before Trash, which really made him explode again. But oh my god, what a great album this is. Just show you the booklet. So just lyrics and boring disc, song titles on the back. This is the album which saw Alice Cooper move into more sort of 80s hard rock heavy metal, as in hair metal territory. Not like Poison or Warrant, but it definitely has an 80s sound, and it's fucking phenomenal. Like, honestly, every single track on this album is brilliant. Smash hit after smash hit, in my opinion. It's most famous for the song He's Back, the Man Behind the Mask, which was a song about Jason, you know, in the film Friday the 13th Part 6, and it featured in that soundtrack. But really, every track on this is just brilliant, so I can't stress enough how underrated this is. Literally no song on this is bad. Everyone brilliant, but my absolute favorites: Life and Death of the Party, Simple Disobedience, The World Needs Guts, Trick Bag, Crawling, The Great American Success Story. That's my number one, Great American Success Story. You'll notice there that I've just mentioned tracks 4 to 9 inclusive. That's more than half of the album. I think that speaks volumes about this appeal. It's like some great riffs, catchy songs, just so euphoric, the whole album, like just brilliant, so hooky. It's genius. Like, not just the music, but also the lyrics, the vocal patterns and everything. It just blends together so well. Amazing album, like a real sing-along album. Trash is probably my favorite album by Alice Cooper, but after discovering this one recently, I would say this is a very close second. Trash is my favorite for nostalgic purposes, but if for whatever reason you haven't heard this and you like hard rock, hair metal, that kind of thing, definitely check this out. So Alice Cooper with Constrictor. Phenomenal. So leading into the next album then, the one I was just talking about, this is Alice Cooper with Trash. As I said, this was the album which propelled him back into superstardom after the 70s, like gave him a career revival, and rightly so, because it's just phenomenal. This is another brilliant album. This album has very special appeal to me because it's the first Alice Cooper album I heard, and at the time I was only about 10 years old, so this was sort of the gateway to heavy music for me, and I still love it to this day. Song titles on the back, so all 10. What I can say about this is, you see all these 10 tracks here, there's not one bad song on this album. Honestly, it's just phenomenal from start to end. That's because it was produced by Desmond Child, who also co-wrote a lot of songs with other 80s bands such as Kiss and Bon Jovi. Just has this ability to write some really catchy songs coupled with Alice Cooper. It was phenomenal. This album spawned quite a few hits, I think 4 or 5. It's one of those all killer, no filler albums. My favorite tracks on this, Poison, of course, the hit single, everyone knows that. That was the first Alice Cooper song I ever heard in my life. Also, House of Fire, Why Trust You, Bed of Nails, brilliant song. Trash, and my other favorite one is I'm Your Gun. A lot of people say that one's a bit cheesy and tacky, like lyrically, but I just think it's brilliant, like so catchy and so fun. And it's also got a couple of power ballads. So track 5, Only My Heart Talkin', good song. And track 9, Hell Is Living Without You. That is so brilliant, like it's melancholic, atmospheric, but so powerful. This album also includes the use of a lot of choirs and keyboards. It's just 80s all the way, hard rock, no relenting, all killer, no filler. If you haven't checked this out, I implore you. Awesome. Alice Cooper, Trash. Alright, last Alice Cooper I'm going to talk about, I have Brutal Planet. This shows Alice going in a darker direction. First of all, it's probably the heaviest and darkest album he's done, and I think from listening to the music, it sounds like he was influenced a lot by 90s metal bands, you know, which were a lot heavier, and also kind of industrial bands like 9 Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson to a degree. Just unique for him to release something like this, like heavier and darker than ever. And the lyrics and the themes on this album are actually quite depressing. It's sort of talking about the decay or the crumbling of humanity and the world. All really dark, negative topics, but the songs that are so brilliantly done, like they're very melancholic at times, but there's just so much atmosphere and emotion in them. So you have to be in the right mood to listen to it, but when I am, I really enjoy it. Talking about some favorite songs here. The title track, Brutal Planet, Wicked Young Man, Sanctuary is one of my favorite songs, like just such a great, anthemic, powerful sing-along chorus. Eat Some More, the song about greed and waste, like so depressing, but the riff in that is just so heavy, brilliant. Pessimistic, very atmospheric track about being a negative person. which I can relate to sometimes. So that's good. Also, the song Take It Like a Woman, that's quite a sad song because it's exploring the themes of domestic violence, not glorifying it, but just making a depressing song about someone's life gone wrong, but it's very emotional, so interesting, like that kind of take. And then the last track, Cold Machines, the riff in that, it must have been inspired by Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People, like, but and it's got a bit of an industrial edge, which is showing that sort of Alice is keeping up with the times. I really like that. How many tracks on here? About 12, but all of them are good. So I just mentioned my favorites there, but honestly, there's not a single bad one, but like there's just my absolute favorites on top of that. So if you haven't heard this and you like sort of really dark, heavy music, great, clean, heavy production, check this out. It's Alice Cooper with Brutal Planet. You tell me, what are the essential Alice Cooper albums I'm missing, whether it's band or solo? I'm interested in his stuff, so let me know. All right. Now, the next band I'm going to talk about also needs no introduction. Quite a famous band. It's Alice in Chains with Dirt. Alice in Chains is a band which kind of defies classification. They were always considered too grunge to be a heavy metal band and too heavy metal to be a grunge band, so it's somewhere in between. And that's what I like about them. It's unique, really. And I think they write some really emotive, brilliant music. This was the first album I heard by them. Like a lot of people, my favorite. So you've got, yeah, you've probably all seen this millions of times before, if you like this kind of stuff. So it's got this fold-out booklet here with the lyrics, picture of the band. This album spawned quite a lot of hits too, so I don't need to go into all the details. I'll just tell you my favorite tracks. Them Bones, really great heavy track with the twin vocal harmonies, which they're famous for. Damn That River, that gets close to heavy metal with that kind of riff. It's like a chunky riff, awesome. I also like Rain When I Die, just great atmospheric song. Rooster is my absolute favorite track on this album, and I think probably my favorite Alice in Chains track of all time. Emotional soundscape, I love that song. So Rooster and Dirt are probably my two favorites. Angry Chair I also like. Down in a Hole was a song where I didn't like it at first, but it grew on me. Like, it's got that very easy sing-along to kind of vibe, which is great. And of course, Wood, that melancholic, depressive, atmospheric outro song. So like, I think I've mentioned about half of the songs on this album, and actually I do like them all. So, the ones I didn't mention, sometimes I have to be in the right mood to hear those, but overall, just a phenomenal album. So my favorite one, if you've never checked this band out, you might think, oh, it's grunge, so I'm not going to give it a chance. Forget labels, just check out quality music. That's what I live by anyway. So Alice in Chains, Dirt. All right, so next I'm going to talk about the following Alice in Chains album, which is Jar of Flies. This is an EP or mini album. Cover art is pretty weird, but I do like it. So it shows literally a jar of flies, but sort of atmospheric. And it's got this fold-out book. Again, most people have probably seen this before, so it's not that interesting for me to show it now, but this is just standard procedure. Yeah, so what can be said about this album? It's very different to Dirt, and diversity is, of course, a good thing. This is largely an acoustic or very mellow album. It's got no metallic tracks as such. Basically, it's an acoustic album featuring a lot of country and blues influences. Again, it prominently displays the band's use of dual vocal harmony. A lot of tracks have a very kind of reflective and depressive feel, such as Nutshell and the instrumental Wail and Wisp. But once again, like, it's just fantastic music, very deep and full of emotion. Yeah, no tracks I dislike as such, just some maybe Don't Follow is a track I don't like. Like, it's musically talented, but a bit depressing for me. My favorite track is undoubtedly the opener, that's called Rotten Apple. That's just a brilliant, melancholic and dark track with depressing vocal harmonies. Strangely beautiful though. And my second favorite track is No Excuses. That's an upbeat acoustic track with a slightly country vibe, and the vocals are kind of reminiscent of Nirvana. So if anyone has a problem with that, that's your problem, but I do like Nirvana and that vocal style, and I think it's just done so well here. So Even though a couple of songs I'm not into as much, this is an excellent release for me. I like about 2/3 of it, and it's worth it for my 2 favorite tracks alone. So check this out for something different. Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies. All right, and the last CD I'm going to talk about today, another Alice in Chains album called simply, you guessed it, Alice in Chains, the self-titled album. So got the title down there, The Dog. Show you this. The problem with these grunge albums is the layout's always really difficult. They make it, it's always these fold out kind of things. But anyway, there you go, lyrics and pictures. So yep, pretty cool. And that's the problem, when they fold out like this, you can never put them back together properly. So I'll just have to mess with that later. But yeah, anyway, coming to this album. This is again different to Dirt. So it's different to Dirt, also different to Jar of Flies. All of the Alice in Chains elements are still there, but it sounds more like a grunge album with less emphasis on the metal elements. So more straightforward grunge. The songs, there's not so many fast songs, they're more slow to mid-pace, and they're often dreamy. And the album sounds a lot mellower. But I don't mean that in a bad way, just yeah, different. The country and blues influences are still there, and again, some songs sound very similar in style to Nirvana, for example, Heaven Inside You, but just great songs. So anyway, talking about my favorite tracks, track 1, Grind, that's a powerful anthemic, it's got a powerful anthemic, dreamy chorus. My absolute favorite song on the album, track 2, Brush Away, just great, catchy, hypnotic riff, dreamy, atmospheric vocals. It sticks in your head big time. Also on track 5, Head Creeps, and track 6, again, has a great catchy vocal melody. After that, about halfway through the album, there aren't really any standout tracks for me, to be honest. Except maybe the closer, Over Now, which has a kind of Nirvana vibe again. It's not to say that the second half of the album is bad, it's just, they're kind of more like ambient background tracks to me. But overall, it's a very good album. I know there's multiple releases by bands, so many bands, so little time, so it's hard to find time for everything. So out of the 2 bands I've spoken about today, if there's anything you think I'm missing which is essential, let me know. Alright, so thanks for sticking around, guys. That's all I'm going to talk about today. Next video I'm going to talk about a collection update, a recent order I made from the Russian Federation, so about another 7 CDs, and that's going back to more pure heavy metal and extreme metal, metal underground. So again, I think variety is a good thing, so some people will enjoy this video. Hope you watch the next one. Thanks for sticking around. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.